Good morning and welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Abona Tennis Online Coaching Podcast. This is your coach, JY, where I do my best to try to help players develop match play skills, understand the mentality you need to achieve great things in tennis, and also helping parents navigate their child's high-performance journey, because it is a difficult one and it can be hard to find a coach to sit down and just talk to you about the whole process whenever you want. So I do my best over here. Have to thank everybody that took the time to read my short, but I guess very interesting coach's diary on the Do 12 and Under Tennis Results Matter. It was a great question posed to me by a parent of a family I work with, and it definitely got me thinking about some very interesting things in terms of tennis development, probabilities of successes. And I know we don't want to be doing early specialization for kids. We do want it to be their choice, but it is just something to consider. Tennis is a repetition sport, so the sooner you start building muscle memory, it does help. Thanks to everybody that took the time to read that and provide their thoughts, especially all the coaches as well, because there are a lot of coaches out there that are more experienced than me and have been through a lot more, so it's interesting to hear what everybody thinks. So thank you for taking that time. Today, I want to talk about the importance of taking your child to pro events or collegiate events. Because growing up, one of the biggest inspirations I had every year was going to the Miami Open. Every March, my parents would take my brother and I to the tournament, and it was one of the most exciting times of the year. It was an opportunity to see the best players in the world up close, in person, learning, studying, and watching the best, and just trying to see, like, how did they get to be so good? You know, we would marvel at Jonas Bjorkman's footwork. It was unbelievable. His feet never stopped moving. I wonder if that's a throwback name for a lot of you. So if guy was one of the best singles and doubles players at the same time. You know, it'd be amazing to watch Martina Hingis when she first came onto the tour. Her hand skills, you know, she wasn't so much about power. Her hand skills to take balls on the rise and maneuver balls around the court, drop shots, angles, slices, push you back deep, move you around. It was just so impressive. And then my favorite, Agassi, with just his impeccable ground strokes, his short take back, standing right there on the rise. I mean, it's unbelievable how fast he could just take those balls on the rise and just not get pushed back. And then he would bully people around the court. Incredible timing. And then how could you not talk about Pete Sampras' serve? I mean, gosh, just lines up, boom, boom, boom. I mean, the guy was just hitting his spots over and over and over. And you could just tell he never worried about his serve. So cool to watch. I remember actually getting Sampras' autograph twice in one practice session. So he finished practice and everyone's lined up right there on the side of the fence. So I had a book that had actually 2 of his pages. So I got him to sign one photo, and then I knew there was a whole new line of people outside of the stadium waiting for him, and I knew he was going to walk by that way. So I got him to sign one, and I ran to the other and just flipped to the next page. I got him to sign the other one. 2 autographs from Pete Sampras. I mean, gosh, at the time, he was the greatest tennis player ever. So that was just, you know, the whole environment and atmosphere to just be around there, for me, it was, considering tennis was the love of my life at the time, and it is just being there was just so cool, just watching everybody, the energy around there, and just to be around other people that also loved tennis that much. Not just other kids, but just adults and families and fans and people traveling. They had the country's flags there. I mean, it was such a cool place. All I could think about was, I want to be there. I want to play here. I mean, why not? I mean, this is unbelievable. Yeah, I remember going straight to practice, you know, because my dad was still running an academy, so we'd have to go in the mornings, maybe early afternoon to the tournament, and then boom, straight to practice after. He had an academy to run, and I had to continue practicing. And I would always pretend to be like somebody I just watched that day. I would pretend that I was Agassi or Hewitt, just ripping ground strokes. You know, I'd shorten up my take backs like Agassi. It's such a short take back. You know, I'd practice my pinpoint service motion with the crazy back arch. At least I thought it was crazy, that Hewitt had. You know, I'd practice my serve and volley like Rafter. You know, I'd close my grip more on the backhand side to more of a semi-Western, Western one-handed backhand grip like Guga Quer and Gaston Gaudio. Anything I saw, I wanted to try to practice. Well, if they do it like that, well then, and that's what made them great. Okay, I'm going to try it. And I couldn't wait to get to a practice court. Even though I didn't want to leave, at the same time, when I got on the court, I was so motivated because I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be as good as them. I wanted to compete at the highest levels in the biggest of stadiums, which Miami Open at that time, what they called it the Fifth Slam, with prize money on the line, rankings to be played for. I would imagine myself walking into center court, playing in front of friends, waving to family and everybody, being the local kid. I never had that moment at the Miami Open, but I always dreamt of it growing up, and it kept me going. Every year it was just fresh motivation and inspiration to keep working hard, but also to see how cool the game of tennis could be, because that's the thing. At the highest levels, it's just they come up with such amazing shots. Well, I want to play that way. So if I want to get there and I want to play that way, I got to go to practice. So it made me want to go practice and actually work it harder. And I think that's something the United States is missing. I think it's something that they need a lot more of. I think that they're a bit disconnected from these types of level of tennis. And I think it's because our country is so big that it's just hard to get to all these professional events. They're far away from people, and it's a monumental effort. I think in Europe it's a lot easier to get to these events. They're a lot closer. It's a lot more accessible. Trains. Schools take kids to tournaments. It's very different, and it's important to get there and see it in person. I know we can watch it on TV, but if you can't see things in person, it's harder to get really inspired by them. It's really hard to feel the magic of what's going on inside that stadium with the fans. It's hard to feel the crowd come alive. You can hear them on TV. It's just not the same when you hear it in person. It really sounds like a roar. It's like, wow. And it's a completely different feeling also to see 145 mile an hour serve, coming off of Isner's racket, and see it in person and to hear that sound, as opposed to just watching on TV. To hear the sound of Del Potro's forehand as it connects with the center of his strings. I mean, it's just monstrous. You're like, oh, you just can't believe it. I would think the same thing watching Nadal just practice. He'd hit the ball so hard in practice. And you have to mention his huge fist pumps, with that incredible buggy whip forehand, running forehand on the run from the back corner, and everyone's just left stunned, can't believe it. And, he's just jumping in the air like that. Federer with his backhand slice that just barely goes over the net but never misses. And you almost don't even hear the ball come off his racket. It's so crisp and buttery. When you see those things and you feel the energy of the crowd as it's happening, I think that's what turns a cool moment on TV to an unforgettable moment in person. And I think if your child is showing any type of passion for the sport, you have to take them to a professional event. And if you can't do that, take them to a collegiate event, because those atmospheres are incredible as well. You actually hear a lot of college players that went on to go play pro still say that their best memories are of when they played college tennis. And it's because the atmosphere it provides, playing for their school. They're playing with so much heart and fight because they're playing also for their friends, their peers, their coaches. They got their uniforms on. Their local community is there for them. They're playing for something bigger. There's an energy there that is incredible, and you don't even find that at professional events. Very few events. US Open, I feel like, can really bring that out of people. But when it's a team environment like that, it's unbelievable. So if you can't get into a pro event, go to a collegiate event. And I wouldn't stress too much if you can't go to a top D1 team. Too many people focus on the best D1 teams. Virginia, USC, UCLA, Florida State. Yep, got to throw them in there. ACC champs this year. They focus on the big schools like that. But really, any collegiate match. Because whether it's D1 to D3 or even NAIA, they're all filled with great players, especially at the top of the lineup. But they're so intense in those matches because it's the same thing. They're playing for their peers, their teams, their school, their community, their coaches. They got the uniforms on. They still bring the same energy across the board. So I think if you can get to any of those collegiate matches, go for it. And if you can't get to those collegiate matches, or you can at least add this in there, go to practices as well. The collegiate practices are open to the public. And most high-performance tennis kids have goals of playing collegiate tennis. And if those are their goals, they need to go see in person the intensity and focus that these college players are playing with. Obviously, if you can see a pro practice, go watch a pro practice, but that's pretty hard, right? So go to your local college team and go watch them practice. Because for me, it's been one of my frustrations with kids is they have these really high goals, but they struggle to understand the energy and effort they need to have on a daily basis in order to achieve their goals. And a big part of that is their lack of exposure to collegiate or professional tennis. They don't have players at that level training at their facility on a consistent basis right next to them where they can really see it and understand it and feel it. You know, I was fortunate enough to grow up having so many of those examples because my dad was one of the best coaches in the country. He coached professional players and some of the best juniors in the country. And on a consistent basis, I was watching these high-level practices on the court next to me. And it didn't just provide a great example for me. It actually inspired me because I wanted to be on the court training with them. I wanted to be so good that I got the call up to say, hey, why don't you come hit some balls with these guys? All right. But I knew the only way that would happen was I needed to improve enough so that they would be comfortable putting me on the court with them. Even if it was for a minute, I wanted to be in there. And so I had to give such an amazing effort every day so I could get better, but also so that I could stand out, right? I needed them to notice me. I needed them to say, wow, like JY's working pretty hard over there. All right, let's watch him a little bit. Wow, he's getting better. And then from there, I could get rewarded with the call to, hey, why don't you come on up? We need an extra body. All right, we need somebody over here. So, you know, did it take a long time for me to get that call? Yeah. I mean, I was watching those practices from when I was very young. It did take years, but you know, I was so happy when I first got on that court. And it was just, I went harder than I could have ever practiced. I moved faster than I could have ever practiced. And I still got crushed. But I was like, okay, well, then that means I need to work at this rate and play at that speed and still go even harder. Okay, that's what I got to do. Great. Then I'll bring that back to my practice over here. And I would be over the moon knowing I just got a shot at that level. I'd be so motivated, like, yeah, see, it worked, right? Maybe if I just keep it up, right, they are willing to bring me back up. But now I just need to bring that type of intensity that I just had to practice with on that court with them. And now I just need to bring it here, do it every day, get used to it, and then get better and better, and then they'll bring me back. All right? It was such an inspiration anytime I got that. And every time they brought me back up, boom, I was inspired again. Boom, inspired again. It was continuous motivation. But I know not everybody has that. So at the very least, get out to college matches, get out to college practices, get out to pro event, and watch as much as you can. All right? It's the best source of inspiration a kid will ever have. And at the very worst, if they don't get inspired at all, and their daily training and practice habits aren't affected whatsoever, you just learned something very important about your child. They might not love the sport in the manner in which you thought, and which is not a problem, right? But if they're saying that they have these high goals, but they don't want to watch high-level tennis, they don't want to go to tournaments, they don't want to go to practice, they want to do other stuff, and as soon as they get there after 30 minutes, like, oh, it's too hot, I want to go home, then that's okay. They're probably giving you a big insight on how motivated they are to get to whatever goal they want to get to. And now you know how much time and effort and resources you need to invest into the tennis that they actually want out of their own tennis. So get out there, take them to a professional or collegiate event, and if you can't get there, get to some practices. And if you can, actually get to all of them, because you're going to find out a lot about your child. And it's going to be unbelievable inspiration and motivation. And at the very worst, you'll find out how much they actually love the sport. So good luck out there. Hope the grind is going well. As always, feel free to email me with any questions at jy@obonatennis.com, or message me on any of the social media platforms. I'm happy to help and happy to talk tennis. Have a good one.